Part 25. Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet. Author, Kisiun Zhong. Chapter 241. Lin Xian stared at the display screen in front of him for a long time. His eyes followed the mouse clicks on the monitor, browsing the horror content in each section. Yes, scary. As a veteran detective, he is also a police king. After seeing those horrific contents, Lin Xian had goosebumps all over his body. First, there is the reward area. For example, a bounty can be offered for what type of arms and weapons, what type of human organs, or someone's life. Even celebrities can offer bounties. The amount of the reward above is all in certain virtual currency. Convert the current day's virtual currency to a common currency. The starting price is 100,000. Secondly, there is the video area. Here, pornography is the most common. You can see all kinds of weird live broadcasts. Disgusting, scary, hair-splitting, you name it. There are games, tasks, drug addiction, communication, all kinds of sections. Almost every crime you can think of can be found on this dark web. Lin Xian's breathing became solemn. In order to uphold justice and eliminate violence, the police are as tired as dogs. They have to run around day and night to bring peace to society and eradicate the filth. But on the internet, in dark corners, it is still such a rampant crime paradise. Any police officer would probably not be able to calm down when seeing this kind of dark web. I would like to kill all the people who built the darknet. More than 2 hours later, the young man in the study finally closed the darknet. The monitor being watched by everyone outside turned into a black screen. Uncontrollably, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. And the expressions of every member of the task force were so solemn. Even a soldier like Guo Su could not suppress the murderous aura in his body. Wang Meng and others had cold eyes and ferocious expressions. A wave of hostility fermented and filled the air. This moment, it was as if all their negative emotions had been lured out. The kind of darkness in my heart that I try my best to suppress on weekdays. It also became a little out of control. Many people know that the most likely cause of human death is physical and mental illness. Physically and mentally. Among all professions, police officers have a terrifyingly high rate of suffering from mental illness. The results of a psychological questionnaire survey show 51.23% of police officers have psychological problems. Mild psychological disorders accounted for 32.18%. Moderate psychological disorders accounted for 16.56%. 2.49% of police officers have serious mental illness. The most frightening thing is that police officers are an occupation with a high suicide rate in the world. There are too many dark sides that I come into contact with every day, and I deal with sin all day long. It would only be a ghost if there was no psychological problem. How is it possible to live long in darkness? Everyone stared. Don't you also want to be a killer? Lin Xian looked around at everyone. Do you want to kill someone with your eyes? Haha. Everyone laughed. Together with laughter, the anger dissipated instantly. They are all veteran detectives, so they have to adjust their mentality. Lin Xian smiled and said, "We haven't seen any big storms. Just look at Zhan Xiaoyang. He's almost 30 and still hasn't found anyone yet." Lin Xian said jokingly, "Do you feel more comfortable all of a sudden?" "Depend on." Zhan Xiaoyang couldn't laugh or cry. Who did I provoke? His mind was full of troughs and he didn't know how to vomit. Life is so boring, you have to know how to have fun by yourself. Lin Xian smiled and patted Zhan Xiaoyang on the shoulder. Right. I became so happy. Zhan Xiaoyang almost cried. If he couldn't beat him, he would definitely let Lin Xian know how cruel he was. Everyone's mood returned to calm in an instant. Everyone knew that Lin Xian was helping them adjust their mental state. It's work. Putting aside his laughter, Lin Xian was about to enter the study room with his team members to continue interrogating the suspect. Sudden. Zhang Shaiyang's expression changed and he made a gesture. Staring at his computer. Everyone's expressions changed and they all became quiet. After about 1 minute. All right. Zhang Shaoyang said with a stern face, the Darnet just hijacked the suspect's computer again. It should have been monitored through cameras and microphones for a while. Wang Men was shocked, how can the computer inside be still working if it's not shut down? The streets are full of surveillance cameras. When did you see computers specially equipped for those cameras? Zhang Shaoyang would like to share with everyone, cameras and microphones are just auxiliary hardware and can work in many scenarios. For example, our computer seems to be shut down. As long as the power and network are not unplugged, using the network cable and some special hardware, we can remotely start the computer anytime, anywhere, and even remotely control all the hardware on the computer. Many people are accustomed to just shutting down their computers without turning off the power and network. It can easily be hijacked by hackers, wake up your computer, and do some illegal things. Gained more knowledge, Lin Xian nodded and walked into the study with everyone. Seeing the suspect and Li Long with pale faces. Now we can have a nice chat. Lin Xian looked at the young man in front of him with a cold smile on his face. What to talk about? 1. Let Zhang Shaoyang use his technology to track down the dark web. 2. Lure the snake out of its hole. Use the suspect to issue some tasks. Lure back those who control the dark web. To control the normal operation of a dark web, it is inevitable to maintain the security of the dark web. But you also need to help some members solve some problems, and even supervise. However, this method of luring snakes out of their holes can only be used once. If used well, you may be able to catch people and destroy the dark web. If used poorly, not only will the login tool be useless, but it will also arouse the vigilance of the dark web. Outside the villa. What kind of task should be issued to lure out the people from the dark web? Lin Xian looked at the dark night sky and smoked. It is obvious how evil the people who can do dark web are. Such people can be said to be crazy. There is no need to say the purpose of doing dark web. Money. Since such people are for money, it is actually very easy to deal with. Then use money to tempt. Lin Xian threw down the cigarette butt. The brain started to work quickly and began to lay out. Then, Lin Xian asked the suspect to post a task on the dark web. Escort task. 1. A bounty of 10 million yuan is required for 10 people to deliver something out of the country. 2. Personnel requirements, retired soldiers or mercenaries need to bring their own weapons. 3. After being sent out of the country, you need to protect the employer to complete the successful transaction of the items. The details of the task need to be discussed in person. What is this task? This is not a task, but a trap. But when people on the dark web see this task, what will they think? A bounty of 10 million, 10 armed people, escorting an item, and ensuring the successful transaction of the item? What on earth is this thing that requires people to spend 10 million bounties to escort? Don't talk about why you don't hire a regular security company. It can only mean that such things must be problematic and cannot be seen in the light, so they are secretly transported out of the country for trading. The bounty is 10 million, and its own value is at least 10 times, or even 100 times, or possibly 1,000 times. Will anyone take such a task? When the task was released, it took less than an hour. Hundreds of chat requests were received on the dark web. Soon, the task was closed. Was it detected by the dark web? No. A dialog box popped up on the suspect's computer. Time and location. Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet. Author, Kisiun Zhong. Chapter 242. Facing the information that popped up on the monitor, everyone's eyes changed. Lin Xian took out the headset and gave an address. In the study room. Hearing the words coming from the headset in his ear, the suspect started typing. Enter the address and time and send. And according to the original plan, shut down directly. This time, even the power was turned off, leaving no chance for the other party to monitor. If a normal Darknet member does this, it will make Darknet personnel suspicious. It's different now. It's the people on the dark web who want to cooperate with them. The more mysterious it is, the less likely it is to cause misunderstanding. 3 days later. Beijing, 5th Ring Road. In a hotel room, Lin Xian and the suspect were sitting face to face. At this time, the suspect looked nervous and fidgety. The suspect's name is Wei Jun, 29 years old, and his family has assets worth several billion. In Beijing, assets worth hundreds of millions or billions are nothing. Don't be nervous, don't be afraid. No matter what happens, you have to act calmer. Lin Xian looked at him coldly. If you mess up, don't talk about you, something will happen to your whole family. This is an intimidation and a tactic. As a police officer, he will not do that. But the guards must behave normally, otherwise it will be easy to get involved. Otherwise, the consequences will be too serious. About an hour later, there was a knock on the door in the guest room. Lin Xian's eyes narrowed instantly. His senses told him that there were 4 people outside the door. Lin Xian stood up and walked to the door. He pretended to glance at the door mirror. Open the door. As expected, there were 4 people standing outside the door, 1 short and 3 tall. Lin Xian's eyes fell on the face of the short young man in front of him. The other party's eyes revealed a cold and cunning light. A smile appeared at the corner of his mouth, cold and sinister. A cold aura spreads across the body, making people feel an inexplicable chill. Lin Xian looked at the 3 tall men behind the young man. The 3 young and middle-aged men exuded a fierce temperament. Not a soldier, not a spiritual guy. Very similar to a thug. Lin Xian stepped aside. 4 people walked into the guest room. Walk up to the guards. Sit. Wei Jun pointed to the sofa. The short young man looked at him coldly for a long time and slowly sat down. The other 3 stood aside. What to give? The young man spoke, with an indescribable feminine tone in his voice. Cannot say. At this time, the guard looked like a rich second generation and sneered, if you accept the mission, don't inquire. The young man narrowed his eyes, and the exposed pupils were like those of poisonous snakes, which made people shudder. Do you even know who you're talking to? A big man behind the young man suddenly yelled and cursed. Just finished cursing. Bang. A thigh slapped the big man on the head. Plop. The big man fell to the ground and passed out. The expressions of the young man and the other 2 big men changed. Looking at Lin Xian, who slowly retracted his thigh. The guard was also frightened, but he pretended to be calm and looked at the young man coldly. Tell your people to shut their mouths, don't act like they wiped off the celu, they will die, do you understand? The young man, as cold as a poisonous snake, twitched the corners of his mouth. After a while, he asked, tell me about the mission process. I need a way to go abroad, to Pakistan. The guard said coldly, you can arrange this channel. All 10 bodyguards must carry weapons to ensure my safety, especially when I am abroad. Of course, if these 10 bodyguards are like the ones behind you, goods, then there's no need. Ken. The young man nodded and sneered softly, since you are so capable, why don't you find someone yourself? You don't deserve to know. Wei Jun sneered, if you want to make money, keep your mouth shut. If you don't do it, others will. The young man's expression changed. He stared at the guard for a long time and nodded, I'll give you an answer in 1 day. I don't have that time. The guard interrupted, give me the answer in 2 hours. After saying that, He picked up the note on the coffee table, wrote down a mobile phone number, and threw it to the young man. "If you think about it, call me." After saying that, the guard stood up. Lin Xian gave the young man a cold look and followed the guard like a bodyguard. The two left the guest room. Outside the hotel, Lin Xian and Wei Jun got into a commercial vehicle and left quickly. The whole process, Lin Xian found that at least two eyes were watching them. All through telescopes. But I won't touch them for the time being. Because I know these people are just small fish and shrimps. Even if they are caught, it will be useless because they will not be able to dig out the dark web. Lin Xian wants to catch a big fish. Took the bait. In the car, Wang Meng asked in a deep voice. Not sure yet. Lin Xian took the cigarette from Guo Su, lit it and took a puff. The fish are teasing the hook, they are all small fish. Do you need to follow the prison? Wang Meng frowned. It's useless. You don't need to follow me. You won't get anything done by following me. Lin Xian shook his head. On the contrary, there will be a risk of exposure. Wang Meng nodded. There is a car following us all the time. Guo Su spoke coldly. I know. Lin Xian blew out a puff of smoke and said, let them follow and we will act according to the original plan. Wang Meng and Guo Su nodded. Lin Xian reached out and patted Wei Jun on the shoulder, smiling, you did a good job. Wei Jun was timid and didn't dare to say anything. Then, the business car drove to a villa area in Badaling. Entered a villa yard and drove into the underground parking lot. The car that followed them parked outside the villa area and did not enter. Lin Xian stood on the second floor of the villa and smiled coldly. When will the fish bite the hook? 1 hour later. Someone called Wei Jun. The task was accepted by the dark web. 3 o'clock in the middle of the night. Two agile black shadows approached the villa. One of them climbed slowly and climbed onto the balcony on the second floor of the villa. He took out something from his body, a micro monitor. Then put the monitor in a hidden place and hid it. Then, he took out one monitor after another and placed them in various places in the villa. The process lasted about half an hour, and a total of 10 micro monitors were placed. Finally, two shadows quietly left the villa. Lin Xian, lying on the bed, opened his eyes. A dozen seconds later, Guo Su appeared in the room. The two made a gesture in the dark. Sneer. The next day, Lin Xian and Wei Jun, both seemed fine. Wash and eat. Until noon, Wei Jun took down a mural on the wall of the hall. A small safe was hidden on the wall behind the mural. Entered the password and opened the safe. Wei Jun took out an object wrapped in golden brocade from it. Came to the living room and sat down on the sofa and opened the brocade. A dark red carved wooden box appeared inside. When the wooden box was slowly opened, a fist-sized, exquisite, and ancient jade product appeared. Jade seal. What kind of jade seal is this? One of the most powerful jade seals in Dragon Country. The seal of the Queen of the Western Han Dynasty. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet. Author, Kisiun Zhong. Chapter 243. Lin Xian looked at the jade seal on the coffee table with a complicated look. He and his sister borrowed some valuable things to fish. The result? Mu Qingjian sent him a jade seal. Lin Xian was completely confused. You must be kidding, it must be fake. At that time, Mu Qingjian smiled and asked her son, what is real and what is fake? Things that have been authenticated by experts must be real? Are you sure the things in the museum are also real? This made Lin Xian confused. Are there fake things in the museum? Mu Qingjian taught her stupid brother, when an expert says it is real, you will hesitate and doubt. But when 10 experts say it is real, then it is real, do you understand? Then Lin Xian knew. There are several seals of the Queen of the Western Han Dynasty in Longguo. There are even many national treasures, and there are several. They are exactly the same, and it is difficult to tell the real from the fake. Never doubt some people's craftsmanship. Facing those craftsmen, experts are all younger brothers. It seems that there is such a thing. A craftsman named Xia imitated an antique, jade clothes with golden threads. Countless experts came here to see the antique. They all said it was real, and in the eyes of the experts, this thing is indeed real, so real that even they can't tell the difference. They even issued an appraisal certificate and the experts valued it at 2.4 billion. This craftsman named Xie took out a loan of 660 million yuan from the bank with a fake national treasure. What is the concept of 660 million yuan in the millennium? Later, an extremely powerful appraisal expert found something unusual. A century-long scam was revealed. It's like now, there are two identical jade seals in front of you. Which one is real and which one is fake? You don't have the final say. When the certificate is available and the experts have also appraised and signed. There are also experts pointing at it and saying, this is real. Then it is real, and the fake is also real. Isn't this simple? So, how much is the seal of the Queen of the Western Han Dynasty worth? You can say it's worth 10 million, or 100 million. 10 billion, 10 billion, 100 billion, it's all fine. Compared with the imperial seal, it's only a few levels lower. It's still a priceless treasure, a national treasure. But for ordinary people, this thing is useless. It's not even difficult for you to sell it, and you'll be worried all day long. If people know you have this thing, it's a minor disaster to be killed. It's normal to be sent to the shooting range and shot with a heavy machine gun. Ordinary people can't have this thing. If you have it, it will become a disaster. It's a crime to possess a treasure. Now this jade seal is a little toy given to Lin Xian by Mu Qingjian. Mu Qingjian also asked her brother if it's enough, and if not, she'll get you a few more. Lin Xian. He felt like a little frog at the bottom of a well. What he really hasn't seen is the real sky. You think you're on the 18th floor, very awesome. In fact, the sisters are already standing on the ceiling. So, is it real? Lin Xian was terrified when he held the jade seal. Mu Qingjian kissed her rebellious son, although this is fake, it is real among the people. Then I'm relieved, Lin Xian breathed a sigh of relief. Then arranged a villa to put the things in. Perfect. Now, when the seal of the Queen of the Western Han Dynasty was taken out, Lin Xian obviously noticed that there were two micromonitors and moved. Presumably at this time, someone from the dark web also saw the jade seal. Just ask if you are tempted. Don't the people on the dark web suspect that this thing is fake? They will definitely suspect it. However, when the dark web task was released, Wei Jun paid a deposit worth 2 million virtual currency. Don't think 2 million is not money. Don't suspect that the police dug a hole. Of course they will suspect it. The people on the dark web will definitely find someone to identify the authenticity of the jade seal. At this time, Wei Jun also took out an appraisal certificate. The National Treasure Level Appraisal Certificate, signed by several experts. All of this was seen clearly by the surveillance camera. Played with the jade seal for a while. Wei Jun carefully put it into a wooden box and wrapped it with brocade. Put it back into the safe in the wall. The bait has been thrown out. Do you think the fish will take the bait? Lin Xian is not afraid that the other party will mistakenly think that the jade seal is real and come to steal it, and kill you. That's what he wants to see. Let you steal it, and let you kill it. The more the other party thinks that the jade seal is real, that is the result he wants to see the most. Only in this way can the big fish behind the dark net be caught. Afternoon. A call came to Wei Jun's mobile phone. "When do you leave?" The person who spoke was the voice of the short young man who had met once at that time. "The channel has been prepared for you, from the western regions, the junction of the Karakoram Pass, into Kashmir. The day after tomorrow." Wei Jun said coldly in a serious tone, "We will meet in the western regions." "No problem." 2 days later. Western regions, Taxkorgan County. An off-road vehicle slowly drove in. Taxkorgan Longba Friendship Road, Jeme Hotel. Lin Xian and Wei Jun got off the SUV. Guo Su and Li Long accompanied them, carrying suitcases in their hands. The four of them walked into the hotel. In a guest room of about 50 square meters. Lin Xian looked at Guo Su and Li Long. "Cheer up, we have a tough battle next." Guo Su and Li Long were happy. They have cooperated with each other for a long time. From the beginning of the case in Baibei to the subsequent investigation. The three of them have a tacit understanding. Of course, Lin Xian is the main fighter, and the other two are assistants. It is also an old rule. Guo Su opened a suitcase. Took out 2 pistols from it and threw them to Lin Xian and Li Long. They are all small workshop weapons, but they are extremely accurate and have few problems. Regular weapons must not be used, which is easy to be exposed. Next, they need to continue acting. Until the big fish is caught, their identities cannot be exposed. Now Guo Su and Li Long are pretending to be mercenaries. There is no need to say Lin Xian, pretending to be a bodyguard of the guards. If I am not mistaken, it won't be long before the dark web people will take action against them. Not escorting them out of the country? Escort them for nothing. If you were someone from the dark web, and you confirmed that the jade seal was real, a national treasure, and a priceless treasure. If you don't go to rob the thieves, then you have something wrong with your brain, right? As long as you finish this job, why bother opening a dark web? You will have wealth and honor for several lifetimes. Isn't it? So the truth is here. If you don't come to rob the thieves, but sincerely send them abroad, then it's called a ghost. People from the dark web won't suspect that this is a trap. No. Because this jade seal is real among the people. Experts have to say it's real when they see it. So, it's real. The police will joke with you about national treasures, do they dare? Who dares to use national treasures to fish? Crazy. But these people will never know, Lin Xian dares. With just one word, Mu Qingjian can get him a few more. Is it a big deal? Lin Xian is playing Zhang Taigong fishing. Are you coming or not, will you let me fish? Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet. Author, Kisiun Zhong. Chapter 244. At night in Taxkorgan, the starry sky is as bright as gemstones. The summer breeze is cool, with a unique sense of comfort. A group of 4 people walked out of the hotel in the moonlight and walked on the street. Walking into a busy street. At first glance, the 4 men were dazzled. There are dazzling exotic beauties everywhere. There is a Reba every 5 steps, a Naza every 7 steps. The ancestors recovered the western regions, and it was not for raisins. Lin Xian murmured, "Zogong is famous in history and deserves to be worshipped in the imperial ancestral temple." Guo Su? Li Long? Even the guards looked at Lin Xian in confusion. None of the 3 of them picked up Lin Xian's joke. How could people of this era know? The western regions has long become a paradise desired by men in the region. They all want to have a western region's girlfriend. It's okay. Lin Xian said seriously, I'm just reminiscing about history. Everyone. Are you sick? The 3 of them walked to a local restaurant. Entered a small private room. A short young man was sitting inside. This was the second time the 2 sides met. After Wei Jun sat down, he didn't say anything and picked up his chopsticks to eat. The young man with a gloomy face glanced at Lin Xian, then at Guosu and Li Long. "Depart at 2 o'clock tonight." The young man said coldly, "Please prepare in advance." "Who are those 10 people?" Wei Jun looked up and looked at the young man. "I have to take a look first. After 2 o'clock in the evening, you will see when you arrive at the location." The young man dropped a walkie-talkie and said an address. He got up and left. After having a meal outside, everyone returned to the hotel. They were all resting and recuperating. It was around midnight. Suddenly, Lin Xian, who was lying on the bed, opened his eyes, stood up, and his face was gloomy. A sense of danger surged in his heart, and he listened attentively. He heard the sound of someone walking in the corridor. Although the sound was very light, stepping on the carpet. But it still couldn't escape his hearing. 6 people, all of them were murderous. In an instant, Lin Xian's body flew into the air, like a civet cat, and appeared in front of the door. The footsteps gradually approached, and when they were about to reach the door of the guest room, they obviously began to slow down. "Si, si. Ka, ka." Lin Xian heard a slight metal friction sound. It also made him smile coldly. This sound was the sound of installing a silencer. It was also accompanied by the sound of the pistol safety falling off. 4 pistols. Guosu and Li Long are prepared, right? If they capsize in such a place, they are not worthy of being the king of soldiers, and they are people who came out of Kuoan. Lin Xian turned his head and glanced at the big bed in the bedroom. Wei Jun was bold enough, still sleeping. His hand quietly fell on the door handle. In an instant, he opened the door. The people outside were obviously startled. 6 people, yes, all men. 24 to 40 years old. 4 of them were holding pistols with silencers in their hands. The other 2 were carrying boxes in their hands. But before they could react, Lin Xian's hand fell into the hands of one of them and took away the pistol. The whole process was like a flash of lightning. Puff, 5 shots in 1 second. The eyes and foreheads of the 5 men were pierced by bullets. The last man was strangled by Lin Xian. At the same time, the door of the next room had been opened. Guosu and Li Long rushed out like leopards. At this time, the 5 men who were shot fell to the ground. 2 people. Get the body into the house first. Lin Xian laughed softly, carrying the man in his hand back to the guest room and closing the door. Guosu and Li Long looked at each other and smiled bitterly. Sure enough, in front of Lin Xian, they were only qualified to do odd jobs and clean up the battlefield. Then dragged the 5 bodies back to the guest room. In another guest room, the guards had already woken up. They stared in amazement at Lin Xian carrying a person back. "Who are you?" Lin Xian put the man down and his palm loosened slightly. But the other party started to fight back instantly. "Why bother?" Lin Xian grabbed the man's neck again and lifted it high. He held the silenced pistol in his hand and pulled the trigger slowly. Puff puff puff, the gunshot was silent and slight. It was as if someone was hitting a pillow with bare fists. The man's knees and arms were shattered by bullets, his limbs were disabled. Woo! Because he was held in the air by the neck, the man couldn't even scream. He fainted from the pain. "Did I let you sleep?" Lin Xian pointed the muzzle of the gun at the man's crotch. Puff, the chicken flew away and the eggs were broken. The man was awakened by the pain again. Lin Xian dropped the pistol and gently put the man down. He covered the man's mouth with one hand and loosened the hand that was pinching his neck slightly. Let the man have a chance to breathe through his nose, but he couldn't scream. Woo woo woo. The man's wailing was tightly covered. Tears flowed, and he was twitching in pain, and he was incontinent. Unfortunately, it was meaningless. When they were about to kill, their fate was already determined. When had I ever seen Lin Xian being soft-hearted to a bad guy? Bang. He punched the man under the armpit. The man rolled his eyes in pain and passed out again. Bang, crack. Another punch broke several of the man's ribs. He woke up again in pain. After 2 such blows, the man couldn't even struggle or resist. He was exhausted by the continuous pain. He was only hanging on with one breath. The guard sitting on the bed. He had long been shocked by Lin Xian's brutality. He was even more shocked by Lin Xian's violent and cold-blooded methods. He felt a shudder from the bottom of his heart, swallowed hard, and broke out in cold sweat. "Tell me, who are you?" Lin Xian let go of the other person's mouth and asked coldly. "I." The man opened his mouth weakly. "I'm a killer." "Killer? You guys are worthy." Lin Xian was slightly stunned and frowned. "But think about it, there's nothing strange about it. The threshold of a killer is sometimes very high, and sometimes very low. Whether it is a person or not, as long as you can kill someone, you can call yourself a killer. The other party still has a gun in his hand, so it is not too much to call himself a killer." "What is your purpose?" Lin Xian continued to ask. Kill people." The man looked painful and twitched all over. "I also want to take something away." "Woohoo," Lin Xian smiled. "Who asked you to come?" "A task was posted on the dark web, 2 million. The man said weakly. "We accepted it." "Not from the dark web," Lin Xian was surprised. "I didn't expect the person behind the scenes to be quite cunning. Knowing to use the resources of the dark web and hiring people to come and test. If they died, the person behind the dark web would be very happy, saving a lot of effort. If they didn't die, there must be a good show waiting for them next, right?" Click. Lin Xian twisted the man's neck, stood up, and smiled. "The more you play like this, the happier I am. I also hope you won't let me down too much. Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet." Author, Kisiun. Chapter 245. Night, 2 o'clock. A mountainous area about 5 kilometers away from the border. Lin Xian didn't feel anything while walking. Guo Su, Li Long, and Wei Jun began to pant. Being over 4,000 meters above sea level is no joke. But Lin Xian's monster-like body completely ignored altitude sickness. Didn't feel any discomfort at all. When the 4 of them arrived at the meeting point, they saw a dozen figures. Guo Su's expression changed immediately. Li Long's expression also began to look ugly. Even Lin Xian frowned slightly. They found that these dozen people were carrying weapons, very formally. There were pistols, shotguns, submachine guns, and grenades were also seen. After taking a few glances with his supervision, Lin Xian relaxed his brows. Imitation. To put it bluntly, it is not a regular weapon, it is produced by a big workshop. And this kind of so-called big workshops are everywhere in Ba. Many civilian weapons in the country are smuggled into the country from Pakistan. Lin Xian's eyes moved to the faces. The short young man was there, as well as the 3 big men he saw when they first met. The other 10 people, weird. Not a soldier, not a gangster, and certainly not a gangster. They are actually local people, including Han and Ur people. Are these people really going to take them abroad? Lin Xian was confused. The 4 of them came closer. The guard looked at the short young man with an angry look on his face. "I was assassinated in the hotel tonight." 6 assassins, aren't you going to give me an explanation? Explain what? The short young man had a fearful expression on his face. He looked away from Lin Xian's face and looked at the guards. "We didn't do it." "Ah." The guard sneered. "Are you not trying to tell me that I hired a killer myself to kill myself?" The short young man was silent for a moment. "Are you still leaving?" "Of course I'm leaving." The guard laughed ferociously. "You guys should go over first and help me explore the way. If there is no danger, we will follow. As soon as these words came out, the short young man's expression changed. What do you mean? I hired you not to protect me. The guard shrugged. I just need a few runners to help me explore the way. If you can survive, the money will be easy to talk about, and I will give you a penny. If you can't survive, then I'm sorry, but you haven't completed the task. Is there a problem? The expression on the short young man's face kept changing, and he smiled. What if I don't agree? You don't agree? The guard laughed a few times and said, who do you think you are? You can't help but disagree. While speaking, a dozen or so tall people, wearing training uniforms, hoods, and fully armed, appeared all around. Weapons were pointed at the short young man and others whose expression changed drastically. These people looked like soldiers. It doesn't feel like a regular soldier. They almost wrote on their faces, we are mercenaries. However, even Lin Xian didn't know who they were. Just made a phone call and asked the Ministry of Public Security to dispatch some people to act as mercenaries. These people do look like mercenaries, not actors. Don't be surprised. Many of the mercenary teams in the world are actually undercover agents. Because wherever there is a war, there will be mercenaries. Through mercenaries, you can learn who is hiring them and what they are doing. Many countries will place spies in mercenary teams. This is a necessary means. As for these people in front of them, their past identities were really likely to be mercenaries. Lin Xian could notice that they were all very old, some were in their 30s or 40s. Now we are cooperating with them in acting. Suddenly. Do you really think you've got me? The short young man suddenly sneered. It seems like without me, you wouldn't have a way to smuggle into Pakistan, right? Your people will show me the way, won't they? The guard looked arrogant and smiled ferociously. Isn't that right? Then what if I told you? The short young man's expression became strange and he smiled. I've called the police. The border police will be there soon. How are you going to deal with it? Moment. The guards were sluggish. The expressions of Lin Xian and others changed drastically. They were just pretending. Oh shit. The guard suddenly roared and pointed at the short young man. Kill them. Wait a moment. Lin Xian persuaded him in time. Leave first, don't get us involved. The guard glared at the short young man and pointed at his nose. Turn around and leave. The four people were covered by mercenaries all around and left quickly. The short young man looked at their departing figures calmly. The unscrupulous ridicule on his face gradually turned cold, and he murmured to himself, so he spent 10 million just to find a smuggling channel? It's reasonable, but it's not reasonable. What did he want to do when he went abroad? Why did he choose Pakistan? The 6 killers killed as they pleased. They were definitely not police officers. Their methods were indeed very similar to those of mercenaries. How did he contact the mercenaries? The short young man thought for a long time and shook his head. Go back and inform first. Western Region, Ta County, a private house. The short young man took out his mobile phone and made a call. The mobile phone connected to the signal tower and dialed a certain city. But he didn't know. At this time, someone was monitoring the signal tower. The mobile phone number information was intercepted, and the city where the mobile phone of the caller was located was locked. Then the signal tower where the other party's mobile phone was located was used to search and locate. Brother Gui. The phone was connected, and the short young man said respectfully, the 6 killers are all dead. There are mercenaries around the other party. They ran away as soon as they heard me call the police. Mercenaries. A cold voice sounded, are you sure they are mercenaries? No doubt, if they are regular soldiers, I can tell. The short young man whispered, they are really cruel and ruthless. The 6 killers killed without caring about the consequences. They can't be police. Nonsense, the police can't have national treasures in their hands. The other party sneered, "You work hard, and I will let you know what to do next." The call ended. In a certain city, in a hotel, a man in his 30s pulled out a mobile phone card, broke it and threw it away. He then took out a new mobile phone and inserted it into the mobile phone. He skillfully dialed a mobile phone number and connected. "Sister-in-law, the other party should be fine," the man said in a low voice, "but they have more than a dozen mercenaries around them, which is not easy to deal with." "Mercenaries?" A female voice came from the phone, sneering, "Then let's find some mercenaries. Don't they want to go to Pakistan? Send them there and take action in Pakistan. Remember, you must get the things back." "Yes." The man responded respectfully, with a cruel grin on his face. "Then let them die abroad." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet. Author, Kisiun. Chapter 246. In a warehouse. Thank you for your hard work. Lin Xian shook hands with a middle-aged man. It's not hard. The middle-aged man smiled knowingly. I just didn't expect to play the role of a mercenary again. A group of mercenaries standing behind him all laughed. Just as Lin Xian guessed. They were indeed mercenaries in the past, but they all retired. Some became ordinary people, some became instructors, and some continued to work for the country. Then, the middle-aged man took his people away. What should we do next? Guosu looked at Lin Xian. If I'm not mistaken, the other party wants to attack us abroad. Lin Xian's expression was indifferent. They don't dare to do it in China. Who are the people who have been frantically testing from the beginning? The killers are like this, and so are the boarders. I want to see what cards they have in their hands. When they find that there are a large number of mercenaries around them, how can they dare to attack in China? In addition to the regular army, the only ones who can deal with mercenaries are mercenaries. The best way is to lead them out of the country and attack them abroad. Next, the other party will definitely contact them and pretend to send them abroad. Lead Pakistan to take action? As for how the other party contacted the mercenaries. Dark web. The dark web is a place where all kinds of people are mixed. Guess how mercenaries take orders? Don't think that mercenaries are very noble. As long as they are paid, they will do anything. Why doesn't the Geneva Convention protect mercenaries and treat them as human beings? Because mercenaries sometimes do evil for money. We are going abroad, Li Long frowned. How is it possible? Lin Xian sneered and shook his head. I'm going to play a mad dog. Mad dog? Everyone was stunned. How can a normal person not retaliate after being assassinated once? Lin Xian's face suddenly showed a cold and piercing smile. The excuse they gave us should be used well. Under the guise of revenge, following the clues is also a good way. But this method is not used by normal police. But for the Special Criminal Case Task Force, as long as they can find the dark web, they can destroy the super dark web. They will do anything. Lin Xian took out his cell phone and called Zhang Xiaoyang. After the call was connected, he asked, "Have you locked the location?" "Yes." Zhang Xiaoyang's words came, "After you left, I used a drone to monitor the other party entering Taxkorgan County, and then I locked a telecom mobile signal source through the signal tower, locked it to a certain city, a certain hotel. But that person is cunning, and he must have taken out the SIM card and couldn't continue to track. The person in Taxkorgan County has locked the location, and I am using a drone to monitor." "Thank you for your hard work." Lin Xian said coldly, "Send me the location." At 4:43 in the morning. A residence room in Taxkorgan County. The short young man who was resting suddenly shuddered and sensed something. The next second, The pain came and the man fainted. When he woke up again, he found himself in a warehouse. The moment he opened his eyes, he found that his mouth was blocked and his hands and feet were tied with cable ties. The fear in his heart suddenly reached the extreme, and his heart almost jumped out of his throat. It was like seeing a ghost when he saw 3 of his men, who were tied up one by one and kneeling in front of him. Suddenly, the young man saw Lin Xian coming out, and his face changed drastically. He seemed to understand something. "Do you really think you can run away?" Lin Xian stood in front of him. "Or do you really think we don't know that the 6 killers were sent by you?" Woo woo. The short young man wanted to shout something, and looked at Lin Xian with a pale face. "Don't worry, it will be your turn soon, take your time." Lin Xian walked in front of the 3 big men and took out a knife. Puff. The neck of a big man was cut open. Woo. The short young man's eyes were bloodshot, and a chill jumped from the soles of his feet to the top of his head, and his scalp was numb with fear. Then he saw Lin Xian cut the necks of the other 2 big men, and blood splattered. Seeing the 3 men being slaughtered like chickens, he rolled his eyes. Fainted from fear. Lin Xian was happy. The cutting of the neck was real, but it was also an act. Guo Su and Li Long dragged the 3 injured people away for treatment. Lin Xian walked over and kicked the short young man. The severe pain woke him up instantly. When the short young man saw the blood all over the ground, he saw Lin Xian squatting in front of him with a smile, looking at him. His heart was beating like a drum, and his whole body was shaking, like sifting bran. "It's your turn." Lin Xian held the bloody knife and bared his teeth. "Of course, I won't let you die easily, that would be too easy for you. And I also want to know who is behind you, no one can escape." Puff. The long knife stabbed into the short young man's thigh. Woo. The short young man rolled his eyes in pain. Puff. Lin Xian stabbed again. It seemed that he was deliberately torturing him. In fact, he was using pain to attack the other party's psychological defense line. Sometimes, criminals are not afraid of the police. Because they know that the police have regulations and dare not do anything to them. Some of the police regulations have become a shield for bad guys. "No matter how you interrogate me, you dare not torture me, what can you do to me?" But when facing a villain who is worse than them, the situation is reversed. Because they know that if they are caught by a villain who is worse than them, if you don't behave yourself, you will be in pain, and even worse than death. For example, now. The short young man was almost scared crazy, and his eyes rolled in pain. He was scared and his face turned pale. For a while, he was terrified and trembling. In his heart, he had already regarded Lin Xian as a mercenary. Mercenaries kill people like playing? Puff, another knife. Lin Xian had a blank expression on his face. He looked at the young man in front of him who was trembling in pain, and grinned. "By the way, I'll give you a chance. Tell me who your superior is. Maybe I can let you go." Reached out and took the towel from the young man's mouth. The short young man looked at Lin Xian in fear. Will he let him go? How is it possible? But people are like this. Even if they see a little hope, they must grab it. This is a life-saving straw. It's Brother Gui. The short young man wailed out this nickname. "Oh." Lin Xian asked with a smile, "Who is Brother Gui?" "I don't know." The short young man shook his head. Puff. The long knife stabbed into his lower abdomen. Ugh. The short young man widened his eyes. "Really don't know." Lin Xian slowly turned the handle of the knife. "I really don't know." The short young man screamed. "In the past, we contacted through the dark web, and I just worked for the dark web." "Really?" Lin Xian smiled coldly. "Do you really think I don't know that you called him?" As soon as this was said, the short young man's face was as pale as snow. He looked at Lin Xian as if he had seen a ghost. How could it be possible? Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet. Author, Kisiun. Chapter 247. The short young man was interrogated by Lin Xian. Start telling the truth and confess. We did get to know each other through the dark web. At the beginning, I just helped them carry goods. What to bring? Poisonous. Continue. Later, I gradually came into contact with Brother Gui on the dark web. I worked for Brother Gui and helped him deal with some matters on the dark web. I also became a small house manager on the dark web. Housing management. Manage some sections on the dark web. At first I was responsible for the live broadcast section, and then I started to be responsible for other sections. What happened to the killer? There are many killer teams, organizations, and even syndicates on the dark web. They often take orders on the dark web. We will keep records of the identity of each member, and have dedicated dark web managers to investigate the identity information of these people. Do you know all the identity information of people who enter the dark web? Yes, otherwise, they would not be able to enter the underlying network. How many members are there on the dark web? About 600 or 700. Lin Xian's expression changed. Is 600 to 700 killers a concept? Don't think this number is small. On the contrary, so many killers are a bit horrifying. If every killer could take one order, the number of murders would be 600 to 700 lives. In the Dragon Kingdom, the death of one person is a big deal. What is the concept of the death of 600 or 700 people? Did you find those 6 killers? Lin Xian stared at the short young man. Yes. The young man was frightened. It was Brother Gui who asked me to hire them to test you. If you are killed, take your things away. Do you know what it is? Lin Xian pretended to be shocked. The seal of the Queen of the Western Han Dynasty. The young man was trembling as if he had malaria. I found it through surveillance video, and the people above also asked experts to identify it, and they said it was true. My sister is amazing. Lin Xian remained silent. It's the same as what Mu Qingjian said. That jade seal is real among the people. What do the people on the dark web want to do? Lin Xian continued to interrogate. Whatever it takes to get something. The young man said, the people above are very careful, fearing that it is a trap or something. I want to test first who you are, why you have such a national treasure, and what is the purpose of going abroad. You must find out. The talents above dare to take action. It's like kidnapping. You definitely need to understand who the other person is. For example, Zhang Ziqiang, a gangster from the past era, kidnapped wealthy people in Hong Kong. He only dares to kidnap the Li family. Do you want him to try kidnapping the Huo family? Scared the shit out of him. If he can succeed in kidnapping the Li family, he can still bet on his survival. If someone from the Huo family is kidnapped, they will basically be dead. The same principle applies to testing the guards on the dark web. I want to see if there are any backup plans, who is standing behind me, and whether I can move. National treasures are good and will make you rich for several lifetimes after selling them. But you also have to have the life to get it. It's the same principle. Now, the dark web has almost found out the background of the guards. The presence of mercenaries around them meant that there was no big force around the guards. If there is a big force and there is no need for mercenaries at all, wouldn't it be better to use official people? The logic is also there. If there are official people, there is no need to stow away. Therefore, people on the dark web can now confidently and boldly snatch the national treasure from the guards. After figuring out all the cause and effect, Lin Xian breathed a sigh of relief. This was exactly the result he wanted, to misunderstand people on the dark web. Don't be afraid of people on the dark web taking action. On the contrary, I am afraid that the dark web will not take action. The stronger the storm, the better, which means the big fish behind the dark web are about to surface. How do you contact the old ghost? Lin Xian looked at the young man in front of him coldly, through the dark web. No. The young man shook his head, although the darknet is safe, it is too troublesome. We all use mobile phones to communicate. Brother Gui will use some methods to give me 3 mobile phone cards. Each card corresponds to a mobile phone number to dial. Every time I call, the mobile phone card I have to throw it away. After all 3 mobile phone cards have been used, he will give me a new card and agree that I can only make calls during a certain period of time every day. This is always the case. A bit cunning, Lin Xian frowned. A mobile phone card dials a number. After a phone call, both parties exchanged cards. There is no way for the police to track and locate him. The most important thing is that confidentiality is very good, and there is only one time period for the call. Even if you want to track it, it won't be possible in a short time. It's different now. For example, a young man still has a mobile phone card in his hand. The old ghost will definitely call the young man recently. Lin Xian can just wait and see. Then Zhan Xiaoyang was called. Let him install some gadgets on the young man's mobile phone card. As long as a call comes in, the other party's location will be locked as soon as possible. Here comes the problem. Is this old ghost a core member of the dark web? Can he find the big fish behind the dark web through him? Lin Xian can't control so much now. Arrest people first and then talk. 2 days later. 12 o'clock in the morning. The short young man had a look of horror on his face, under the cold gaze of Lin Xian. Take your phone and turn it on. When the phone connects to the signal tower, a signal appears. It takes about less than a minute. Sudden. The cell phone rings. Lin Xian's expression remained unchanged. The young man's expression became stiff, and the muscles around his cheeks twitched visibly. Gritting his teeth, he answered the phone. Brother Ghost. You go find that guard and take them from the border to Batail Kingdom. The other party's voice was gloomy. I can agree to whatever they ask for before going abroad, do you understand? Yes, the young man's face turned pale. Call ended. Locked position. Zhan Xiaoyang, who was holding a laptop, looked at Lin Xian with an excited expression on his face. X City. Half a day later. X City is also a Fujian city and was called the capital of Fujian in ancient times. It is a typical subtropical area and a second-tier city. Chang'an District, Vienna Hotel. Lin Xian walked into the hotel lobby and came to the reception desk. The 2 receptionists stood up and greeted each other with smiles. When I saw Lin Xian's handsome face, I was confused. Too beautiful. Hello. Lin Xian smiled like sunshine. Can you tell me how to get to the control room? I'm delivering food. As he spoke, he picked up the takeaway package in his hand. Go left to the security room behind the first floor. After finishing speaking, a receptionist smiled and asked, Brother, can I add you on WeChat? There are 2 tigresses at home, they can eat people. Lin Xian smiled and shook his head, waving to them. The 2 receptionists looked at each other. 2 tigresses, are you kidding me? Under the regretful gazes of the 2 receptionists, Lin Xian walked towards the monitoring room. Knocked on the door and walked into the monitoring room. There were 2 monitors sitting inside. Lin Xian put away his smile and took out his police card under the gaze of the 2 men. Police. Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet. Author, Kisiun. Chapter 248. The expressions of the 2 monitors changed instantly. One person even looked frightened, his face turning from red to white. Seeing the reactions of the 2 monitors, Lin Xian laughed instead. What are you nervous about? Zhan Xiaoyang used technical means to locate the old ghost in this hotel. Lin Xian wanted to prevent accidents. It is also the first time to think of controlling the monitoring room to prevent accidents. As a result, Something unexpected happened. Do you know about the dark web? Lin Xian walked towards them. The pupils of both monitors' eyes changed at the same time, shrinking uncontrollably. One of them even stood up quickly and wanted to run to the window of the monitoring room. Bang! A thigh whipped the monitor on the head, knocking him straight to the ground. Do you want to run too? Pulling back his thigh, Lin Xian looked at the other monitor who looked ashen. The other party was trembling and did not dare to speak. The door of the monitoring room opened, and Zhang Xiaoyang came over with a suitcase. Guo Su and Li Long were watching outside the hotel. Wang Meng and the others were with the guards and could act at any time. I locked the old ghost through the hotel check-in information. Tracing the source of a cell phone signal is not as complicated as one might think. Through the signal tower band, the location can be roughly locked. After checking the check-in information, the suspect's identity was locked. Yuan Jiamao, male, 35 years old, native of Fujian, has a criminal history. The other party doesn't understand computers, and no one has ever studied computers professionally. It is impossible for such people to build a darknet, or they are not worthy. There is a high probability that it belongs to a fringe manager in the dark web management. At this time, Zhang Xiaoyang took over the control room. One person, one laptop, operates all equipment in the control room. The surveillance cameras in the entire hotel were retrieved, and all surveillance videos were also retrieved. Soon, Zhang Xiaoyang used surveillance video to locate the old ghost's past visits to the hotel. Lin Xian looked at the middle-aged man frozen on the surveillance screen. The suspect Yuan Jiamao is very fat, about 170 centimeters tall and weighs about 200 kilograms. Through surveillance, the suspect is in the hotel and there is a woman in the room. Zhang Xiaoyang looked at Lin Xian, arrest directly or I'll go take a look first. Lin Xian took a card from Zhang Xiaoyang. Room card. Hotel cleaning staff have this kind of card. All rooms can be opened for easy cleaning. Don't think that you only need one card for each room you stay in a hotel, then you are too naive. Someone wants to open your guest room, anytime, anywhere. Lin Xian walked out of the control room and walked to the elevator. Enter the guest room area and walk into the guest room corridor. Until he stood in front of a guest room. For a second, I didn't notice the danger. Swipe the card to open the door and walk in. Then he saw a naked woman coming out of the bathroom. The woman's expression changed drastically and she was about to scream. Snapped. Lin Xian held the woman's neck, closed the door, and walked towards the big bed. Come to the bed and let go of your hand. Due to insufficient blood supply, the woman fell into shock and coma and fell to the ground. He also stood in front of the suspect whose expression changed drastically. Yuan Jiamao. Lin Xian's tone was indifferent. Should I call you an old ghost? The blood on Yuan Jiamao's face felt as if it had been drained instantly, and fear appeared in his eyes. Then, Lin Xian slowly took out a knife with a look of horror on his face. It seems you know who I am and why I came to kill you, right? Lin Xian smiled. Isn't it good to live honestly? Why do you have to be greedy? Etc. Yuan Jiamao exclaimed, are you a mercenary? Being a bodyguard is also for money, right? Can I give you money to buy my life back? Oh, Lin Xian pretended to hesitate. How about 1 million? Yuan Jiamao swallowed. Ah! Lin Xian sneered and raised his arms. The sunlight outside the window shone on the blade, flashing a cold light. 5 million, 5 million okay. Yuan Jiamao was extremely frightened. Do you think I haven't seen the money? Lin Xian gave a fake smile and said, do you know that if we go on a random mission, it starts with 10 million yuan? There are more than 10 people in a team, and it only costs 5 million to divide it up. Is it possible to buy your life back with such a small amount of money? 20 million. Facing the long knife, Yuan Jiamao gritted his teeth. This is the most money I can afford. Lin Xian was stunned. Not because 20 million is a lot. But a small leader of the dark web can actually take out 20 million at will. So how much money do the operators behind the dark web have? Lin Xian sneered and waved his hand. The long knife pierced Yuan Jiamao's thigh, and blood spattered. Didn't wait for the other party to call out. Lin Xian pinched Yuan Jiamao's neck. If you dare to scream, the next knife will pierce your heart. Human endurance is terrifying. Lin Xian let go of his hand, but Yuan Jiamao didn't scream. He gritted his teeth and was covered in sweat from the pain. 20 million, right? Lin Xian unhurriedly pulled out the knife and looked at him expressionlessly. Give it to me now, immediately. Good. Yuan Jiamao nodded quickly. Give me a safe account and I'll transfer it to you. The so-called safe account is an account that is not under supervision. It's like an ordinary person's account. Suddenly someone transfers more than a certain amount to you. The bank system will display a monitoring warning and investigate the source of funds. Some scammers transfer tens of thousands of dollars to some people when committing crimes, and they don't transfer them all at once. This is to avoid such monitoring alarms. If too much is transferred at once, the bank will find out and then track it. But there are also some special accounts that will not be monitored and alarmed. It doesn't matter how much the transfer transaction is. This is a safe account, which only certain people have. Lin Xian's face changed again. It seems that there are a large number of safe accounts in the hands of dark web personnel to avoid being discovered by banks and police for abnormal transactions. And this kind of account is not available to ordinary people. It means that there is a problem with an internal staff of UnionPay. This internal staff has a very high position. Dig slowly, and finally dig it out, Lin Xian said an account with a gloomy face. Yuan Jiamao took the mobile phone and traded a sum of money into this account. It was indeed 20 million, and it was a transfer from a corporate account. But it was beyond Yuan Jiamao's expectation, or perhaps it was not unexpected. Lin Xian raised the knife and stabbed Yuan Jiamao's neck with a grin. No. Yuan Jiamao screamed, I can give you more money, and my boss also needs mercenaries to do things. The tip of the knife stopped in front of the neck. Really? Lin Xian retracted the long knife. Do you know that I came here this time just to find your boss and kill him? I know. Yuan Jiamao nodded, trembling all over, but in this world, is there anyone who can't get along with money? That makes sense. Lin Xian's cheeks showed a smile. Then help me ask, how much money will your boss spend to buy his own life? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet. Author, Kisiun. Chapter 249. As long as I brag enough, there is nothing in this world that I can't do. This sentence was said by a senior in the liar world. Now Lin Xian is playing a liar, or a mercenary. He looked at Yuan Jiamao in front of him with a smile, and watched him make a call with his mobile phone. Very obedient. It is never the truth that makes others obey, but the fist. This is reality. The phone is connected. Yuan Jiamao said quickly, Sister-in-law, I am an old ghost. Explain. A female voice sounded from the receiver of the mobile phone. Lin Xian took the phone and put it to his ear. Hello. The other party was silent. Don't think that everything will be fine if you don't speak. Lin Xian smiled coldly. Do you know that you have offended people you shouldn't have offended, and you have greed that you shouldn't have? Are there some things you can touch? Are you, from the guards? The other party's tone was light. Very smart. Lin Xian sneered. Why do you want to die? Because of greed. The woman smiled and said, People, are there any people who are not greedy? For example, you asked me to call me. I guess it was because of greed, right? What a smart woman, Lin Xian's pupils shrank. The old ghost is still alive now, so he gave you money, right? The woman smiled and asked, how much do I have to pay to make you give up looking for me? Lin Xian asked, how much can you pay? I have a lot of money. The woman said with a smile, the question is, do you dare to come and get it? Why don't you dare? Lin Xian pretended to be cautious and snorted, do you still want to kill me? I don't want to be an enemy of your mercenaries, and I hate fighting and killing. The woman said coldly, I am a businessman and I only talk about business. However, I do have a business that I want to discuss with you. Tell me about it. Lin Xian was shocked. Think about it, the guards have already taken that thing and hid it, right? The woman continued, he also hates us and wants us dead. Lin Xian smiled and said nothing. Can I ask how much the guards paid to hire you? The woman seemed curious. Lin Xian was silent for a while. 50 million, protect him for half a year. 50 million. The woman smiled, how about I give you 100 million and tell me his hiding place? Do not make jokes. Lin Xian said in a deep voice, although mercenaries are jealous of money, we don't do things like betraying their employers. If we do you think anyone will cooperate with us in the future? It's like a bank in a neutral country. In the past, people only deposited money with them because they claimed to be neutral. But when they are not neutral and their century-old reputation instantly collapses, who will go to them to save money? The same goes for mercenary companies. Some money can be taken, and some money must not be asked for. Unless, you have to pay more. 1 billion. The woman said calmly, is it enough? Lin Xian was completely silent. 1 billion is enough to create the most powerful mercenary army in the world. A special force is sent out just for you and will follow you to do whatever you want. For the sake of 1 billion, some small mercenary companies can also give up their integrity. Master, please don't treat them as human beings tonight. Take the money first and then talk about it. Lin Xian smiled, otherwise, do you think I would believe you? Then how can I trust you? The woman asked. Lin Xian said ferociously, when I find you, your money will still be mine. After saying that, he hung up the phone. Offensive and defensive exchanges. Although those who run the Darnet are bad people. But they are rich people now. Rich people all have one thing in common, they are afraid of death. As long as he acts like a mad dog and chases people on the dark web to bite them. If porcelain touches an earthen pot, the porcelain will always suffer. The cell phone rings. Lin Xian waited for a long time before answering the phone. I will give you 100 million first. The woman's voice was very cold, as long as you tell where the guards and that thing are hidden, I will get the thing and the remaining 900 million will be given to you. Do you think I will believe it? Lin Xian mocked, when we collect money from you, it will be the day we die, isn't that right? Do you have any other ideas? The woman sneered, how about you make a bet and I'll give you 100 million. Otherwise, we each rely on our own abilities. What do you mean? Lin Xian narrowed his eyes. Are you not moved by the national treasure of the Dragon Kingdom? The woman sneered, your appearance should be to hunt us down and silence us, right? It's also to prevent others from knowing about this national treasure, right? Lin Xian. This woman is quite capable of adding drama to herself. Have you all imagined this? Lin Xian's momentum suddenly changed and became murderous, are you thinking too much? Haha, that's true. The woman sneered a few times, why are you ready to die? Lin Xian's expression changed. Be cheated. The other party kept talking to him, was he stalling for time? Sudden. Da-da-da. Chug-tug-tug. Outside the hotel, gunfire sounded like exploding beans. That was the sound of gunshots fired from submachine guns and assault rifles. Lin Xian's eyelids were twitching wildly. And the call. Bang. He knocked Yung Jiamao unconscious with a punch and rushed to the window of the guest room. Lin Xian's pupils suddenly shrank when he stood in front of the window. He squatted down quickly. Bang. Gunshots were heard in the distance and the glass exploded. A sniper bullet flew over Lin Xian's head and hit the wall of the guest room. Submachine guns, assault rifles, sniper rifles, all appeared. Lin Xian's face also changed completely. Who else can have these equipment except the army? If it is not the military of Longguo, who else could it be? Ordinary bad guys are equipped with these weapons. An answer emerged in Lin Xian's mind. Real mercenaries appeared. Outside the hotel, 2 business cars stopped on the road, and more than a dozen men in training uniforms, fully armed and wearing hoods rushed out of the car. They exchanged fire with Guo Su and Li Long in the hotel lobby. While suppressing firepower, they rushed towards the hotel. The road was already in chaos. Who dared to watch the real gunfight? Passers-by had already fled in fear. In the guest room. Bang, a sniper bullet penetrated the wall. Flying past Lin Xian. This is the real power of sniper bullets. Not to mention the human body, not to mention the wall, you can even penetrate the steel plate. More than 300 meters away, Lin Xian frowned. His pistol could not shoot that far, so he was passively beaten. These are not the key points. Guo Su, Li Long, Zhan Xiaoyang and others are also in danger. Facing the attack of the mercenaries. Guo Su, the king of soldiers, may survive and have the ability to fight back. What should Li Long and Zhan Xiaoyang do? In an instant, Lin Xian rushed out and dodged another sniper bullet. His body hit the door of the guest room. With a bang. Rushed into the corridor and ran downstairs. Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet. Author, Kisiun Zhong. Chapter 250. Running all the way, Lin Xian rushed to the hotel lobby. Gunshots, screams, and shattering sounds intertwined. It formed a thrilling picture. Bullets whistled in the air, carrying the threat of death. The decorations in the lobby were smashed to pieces, and it was a mess. Guo Su and Li Long had been suppressed by the gunfire and hid behind the bunker, not daring to show their heads. They only had pistols on them, and you used your head to fight against submachine guns and assault rifles? Even so, the two sides were fighting fiercely, and bullets were flying. 2 fully armed hooded men opened fire to suppress the fire while rushing into the hotel. In an instant, Lin Xian rushed out of the stairwell, leaned down and landed on his hands. It seemed that he had turned into a black panther hunting for food and flew out. His speed was too fast. In the eyes of many people, it was like seeing a shuttle black shadow. Almost a leap, crossing a distance of more than 10 or 20 meters. Bang bang, 2 gunshots were like one shot. 2 armed men who were firing were shot in the eyes, and the bullets penetrated from the back of their heads. Before the 2 armed men fell down. In the splash of blood, when the 2 armed men widened their eyes in disbelief, Lin Xian appeared in front of them and took the assault rifle from one of them. Raised his hand and aimed outside the hotel. Pull the trigger. Bang, 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 3 shots in a row. 300 or 400 meters away, in the stairwell of a high-rise apartment. A sniper who was holding a sniper rifle was instantly shot through the head by 3 bullets. No, the whole head exploded and shattered directly under the terrifying 7.62 rifle bullet. This is the most realistic scene after being hit by a bullet. The head exploded like a watermelon. However, the 2 bodies in front of Lin Xian had just fallen down. From his appearance to the killing of the 2 armed men, to the shooting of the sniper. It was so smooth that even Guo Su and Li Long were shocked. Not to mention the armed men outside. Countless people shuddered at the same time. They were frightened by the cruel, swift, and smooth killing method. Lin Xian's breathing frequency did not even change. His hands were as fast as lightning. He removed the magazine from the rifle, took the magazine from a corpse, and quickly replaced it. It was completed in less than a second, and his hands left a trail of after images. When the two corpses in front of him fell halfway, Lin Xian, who had finished replacing the bullets, stretched out his hand. He grabbed a corpse, like holding a human shield, and rushed out of the hotel with the corpse. The killing has just begun. The armed personnel outside the hotel just came back to their senses. The muzzles of the guns were instantly pointed at the corpses and Lin Xian. Da-da-da. Tuesday. Crazy firing. The bullets penetrated and smashed the corpses like a rainstorm. Using corpses to resist bullets is a joke on the real battlefield. Wearing a bulletproof vest may be possible, but how big is the bulletproof vest? Can other places also withstand the penetration and tearing of bullets? When more than a dozen armed men opened fire at the same time, they suddenly found something wrong. They were all stunned. The body was a flying person standing up, and their attention was also attracted by the body. After Lin Xian rushed out of the hotel, he had already been lying on the ground. The body was also thrown out by him to deliberately attract the attention of those armed men. It was at this time, bang bang bang. As Lin Xian pulled the trigger, the assault rifle roared and exploded. While firing, he seemed to turn into a cheetah and ejected. Running while firing, he suddenly pounced on the ground and slid close to the ground. 3 seconds. Lin Xian emptied the rifle magazine and appeared in front of a commercial vehicle. 6 armed men had their heads smashed. 5 armed men hid behind 2 commercial vehicles. Lin Xian, who dropped his rifle, ejected, jumped high, and jumped over the commercial vehicle. Bang bang. In the air, there was a pistol in his hand, firing in the air. The tops of the heads of the 2 armed men hiding behind the car were shot through. Lin Xian moved his arm. Bang bang. 2 more shots. 2 of the 3 armed men behind another commercial vehicle were shot in the eyes. When Lin Xian landed, his palms did not stop. Bang, 4 shots in 1 second. The limbs of the last armed man seemed to be hit by bullets at the same time. Plop. He fell to the ground while wailing. Huh. A long breath came out of Lin Xian's mouth, and he put down the pistol. The crisis was resolved. In an instant, he turned around and looked into the distance. He kicked the ground with his foot. An assault rifle on the ground was kicked up. Grab, raise your hand, aim, pull the trigger. Bang bang bang. 200 meters away, on the rooftop of a shopping mall. A man holding a telescope. The telescope was shattered by bullets. An arm was broken. The lower abdomen was torn by the bullet. He fell to the ground. Did he fail? He just needed one more survivor. He was worried that one survivor would not be enough. 2 survivors would be safer. At the same time, Lin Xian realized that there were 2 other places where someone was watching him. Need to solve it? No. He turned around and looked at the road. A police car was rushing over. Lin Xian did not hesitate and pointed the assault rifle in his hand at the police car. Bang, bang, bang. Bullets pierced the hood of the police car. Smashed the windshield. Blown the tires. But they didn't hurt the police in the car, they just stopped them. He was crazy, and he wanted to do it to his colleagues. Not really. Lin Xian was just pretending to be a mercenary to show off to some people. Guo Su, Li Long, and Zhang Xiaoyang rushed out of the hotel. Then everyone rushed into a business car and sped away. Before leaving, Lin Xian glanced at the hotel building and a strange smile appeared on his face. The suspect Yuan Jiamao was deliberately left alive by him. He would also tell the local police not to touch this person. At that time, do you think Yuan Jiamao, who escaped, will bring him a little surprise? There is one more thing. Lin Xian's face began to change constantly. He obviously noticed something wrong. Those armed men were mercenaries. But they should be just ordinary mercenaries. How could they appear so quickly? Could it be that someone knew he would come to find Yuan Jiamao? Deliberately prepared some mercenaries to wait for him? I think he was discovered when he was moving against the short young man, right? Did they know that he would follow the short young man's line to find Lao Gui and then ambush him? If that's the case, it's a bit scary. What's even scarier is, the mercenaries entered the country with weapons. If the other party can find one mercenary, they will definitely find a second mercenary. If they can find ordinary mercenaries, they can also find more powerful mercenaries. The people on the dark web have begun to do everything they can for that national treasure. So, Lin Xian leaned on the back of the passenger seat, watching the business car speeding, and smoking with a smile. You are all looking for us madly now. What a coincidence, I am also looking for you madly. Wait for me. I will go and do you right away.